One thing about morning commutes that I love is listening to the radio and hearing some of the conversations. Sometimes people will call in and they'll have a certain topic that people will give their opinion on. And this morning I was listening to them talking about mental health. And the question was, why is it that we're in the state of the world that we're in? Why do we feel that there's so much violence taking place in the world? Why are people going quote unquote crazy today? And there were several different opinions. Some of them are pretty common. People are under a lot of stress, under a lot of pressure, the economy, etc., etc. But one of them that came to the topic was something called ACEs. And I can't remember what it was that he said that stands for, but it's basically experiences from your childhood. If you've had like 3 to 5 of them that were traumatic, that never went addressed. So, for example, if you saw pew pew violence, if you dealt with being essayed, if you dealt with, seeing certain abuse in your household on a day-to-day basis or in your neighborhood, and you were just sent off to school and that never was faced and it never was addressed, all of that being suppressed within the mind is what's considered ACEs. And I have to look this up because it's like, wow, to imagine somebody going through that every day and think about all of that being held on to in their adulthood life, never having been faced and being normalized. That's one of the reasons why we have the world we're living in today and people are exploding. But I say all this to say, what is the cutoff time though? At what point do we say that there's no excuse? At what point do we say that we should now have addressed these issues or should at least acknowledge that they exist? Because I feel like with reaching a certain age, especially with this era that we're in, there's so much information out here in the world that in some cases there is no excuse. You have to come to some type of awareness that you have some trauma that you haven't dealt with. And what I think it is that people make excuses for themselves. And once again, it gets normalized. And it's like, okay, well, I made it this far without having to address these things. So why should I address it now? I'm going to just keep on going and getting along like I've been getting along because, hey, I'm surviving, right? I'm still making money. I'm still getting the things that I want in my life. And it has not stopped me. I'm still breathing. So it can't be anything wrong with me. When the whole time it's affecting the person's life in different ways. Whether it's how they sleep, whether it's their eating, whether it's their communication skills, whether it's their tolerance level, their patience. On some level, the things that go unaddressed and suppressed affect us. There are signs. A lot of times there are signs in the people around the people that have been traumatized pretend like they don't notice. Or they act surprised when something does finally happen and it's a little too late. So I guess my question is like, when is the cutoff time though? And I'm not going to say it's a cutoff because I feel like throughout our entire lives, we're always healing. There's always going to be something that we're going to have to heal from. Life is infinite. You can have all of the joy in the world and you still have to live on this earth. That in itself is traumatizing. So in my opinion, it never ends. Healing, the journey of healing never ends. But when do we get to a place in our lives where we say, okay, at this point, by now, is it 18? Is it 21? Is it by 25? Because I feel like there's at different points in our lives, awakenings that we go through as well. And we have that option to say, okay, this has triggered me in this experience. What am I going to do about it? Am I going to continue to move on like nothing ever happened? Or am I going to address this? At what point in our lives is it necessary for our traumas to be faced, to be addressed. My personal opinion, I feel like as an adult, by the time you become an adult, those things should at least be acknowledged. Whether it's journaling, whether it's finding a therapist, whether it's having somebody to talk to, but something. Y'all let me know in the comment section. By what point do you feel that a person should be responsible for their traumas?